Hi friends, today I want to share with you this fun Flower of Life earring design. I've had a lot of requests on my Instagram how I go about making these, and I appreciate you tuning in. First, before we get started, I want to just go over some of the supplies you're going to need to create these. You are going to need embroidery thread. This is the kind that I currently am using. It's acrylic, and I happened to acquire a lot of it at an estate sale. It's I believe no longer in production, but it is called Pretty Punch, and it comes in a variety of some really great colors, if you can see that label. And you know, of course, if you would prefer to use cotton or other types of materials, I'm sure you can find substitutions that will work just as well. I also, I use these dainty feather charms. You can embellish them if you'd like, or you can leave them plain if you prefer to wear an earring that is more simple. I like to use French hooks, and I add a bead connector as well. The hoops that I work with, there's two different kinds that I use, and one of them is this simple metal ring. I get them at a jewelry supply wholesale store close to where I live in Michigan, called Monroe Craft Supply, MUNRO crafts.com. They do have a website, and they do ship. They do sell a lot of their materials online. I also use this style, which is similar to this style, but it has a connector at the top. So it's up to you which one you would prefer. If you use the one with the connector at the top, then you wouldn't have to create the bead connector as what's shown here, because for this ring I use that has no connector, you have to kind of create your own to get the hook attached to it while you're assembling it. So that's just something to think about before you get started. I also, my feather charms I buy in bulk online, and I like the small and the big feathers, and they have the feather pattern on both sides, which is nice, because then you don't have to worry about it when you're assembling it. You don't have to worry about one side being plain and then one being with the print on there, because you want the earrings to be facing forward on the good side of your work, so that makes it easier. And then beads, if you care to add your own beads, you can use wooden beads, you can use any kind of stone. I use quartz crystals on these earrings. I also use, to do my bead connectors, I like to use straight pins, and you will need certain jewelry supplies to make these earrings. So cutters, flat nose pliers, needle nose pliers, and you can get those at any craft store or jewelry supply store. And lastly, you're going to need jump rings, and these are the ones that aren't closed, they're open, so that way you can open them up and use them to connect charms, and also your bead connector at the top. So those are some tips and recommendations before you get started. You might want to acquire all of these supplies. Now, the Flower of Life stitch is an advanced stitch, so if you're a beginner, I would suggest looking up this stitch. There are a lot of beginner tutorials on YouTube that you can go at your own pace, and when you feel ready to take on a project like this, and you feel confident that you know how to do this stitch, then also you have to get confident with using really small hooks. This is a 1.3, so this is the size I would recommend using for this size hoop. These are 1.5 inch hoops. They do have other sizes out there if you want to get bigger hoops or smaller hoops, although in order to get the Flower of Life pattern in the hoop, you're going to want to do 2 rows of flowers. So I find that this size works pretty well. If you were to do a 3rd row, it would be significantly larger. So if you want to try to make a pair without the hoops, you might have to experiment and maybe use some kind of fabric stiffener, or I've seen people use some kind of like glue mixture mixed with water, or salt even with water. But I like the hoops because I think it gives them really good shape and they hold up really well. So yeah, so now we can get started. I'm going to kind of walk you through this Flower of Life stitch, and I'm using white because I feel like it's pretty easy to see on a black background. So to get started, you're going to take your thread and you're going to make a magic loop, like right about there. You want to be able to get your hook inserted into that hoop. And to start the first flower in the center of this design, you're going to want to start by chaining 6. It's kind of cumbersome at first until you get going on it, but we're going to chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then you're going to go back into that magic loop and you're going to slip stitch. And just kind of go slow at first. I mean, you can go slow for the entire duration of creating these, because you'll find that when you do the Flower of Life stitch, it's some intense counting and it takes a lot of focus. So you don't want to miscount, or you might accidentally add 1 too many petals and it throws the whole thing off. So take your time when you're doing this stitch. There's really no rush. So again, we're gonna chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, back into the magic loop and slip stitch. You're going to have a total of 6 petals in that center loop. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Into the center of the loop and slip stitch, and you can pull that in a little bit more to get more control over the stitching, and then you're going to repeat that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the center of the loop again. And you're going to just pull that a little tighter, and another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again into the center of the loop. And then lastly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and into the center of the loop. And now you're going to pull that string just lightly because you don't want the string to break. So now you have 6 petals. This is the pattern taking shape here. So now you want to slip stitch your way to the center of that first loop that you made. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want to get to the center, the top there. I recommend natural daylight to make these earrings. I like to make them outside. Natural daylight is best. It's sometimes very hard on your eyes. It's very straining for me to try to do this indoors. Unless you have a really good indoor light situation, then maybe that works for you. But yeah, that is something I would suggest. So now when you're at the top of that loop, you're going to chain 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, and you're going to go across to the top of that loop and you're going to slip stitch. Okay, and then you're going to do another 4 stitches, and the same thing, you want to try to go into the top of that stitch, so try to get into the 2 parts of that top stitch if you can. If not, it's okay. It's just it gives it more of a secure stitch. So okay, so now we're at the top of that stitch, and then another 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, top of that next stitch. So now you have the spaces are being created by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch. So I'm going to try to get into that stitch a little bit better. Okay. And last section is another chain 4. And then you're going to slip stitch into that first chain in this round. Sometimes this yarn splits, so I'll just do the stitch over when that happens. Embroidery thread is it's meant for doing embroidery, but I like to make earrings with it. So, you know, if you do lace crochet, or you like to make doilies, or you want to just learn how to make things on a smaller scale, it takes a little bit of patience and practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not too terribly hard. So there you have your first flower. Okay, so now we're going to create the second row right here of flowers. Okay, so now you're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then you're going to slip stitch into this same stitch right there in the center, and you're going to chain 3 again. I'm sorry, chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you're going to go back into that same space, and you're going to slip stitch. Okay, and then you're going to do that one more time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back into the same stitch and slip stitch. So now you have the first 3 petals created on the top of this round here of the previous round, and you want to make sure you have 6 petals. So if you stop and count each time you do a section, just to make sure that you got the math count right, then you're good to go. So I'm just gonna show you right here what the count is. So we have 3 at the top, and then this counts as a petal, this counts as a petal, and this counts as a petal. So that's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now you got to make your way across to the next point, or the next petal, which is right here. So you have this space of 4 stitches right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to single crochet over there. You're going to do 4 single crochets in this chain 4 space. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so now you've arrived to the second petal, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of that petal, just like so. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, but I'm going to go slow so you can understand what I'm doing. Now you're going to chain 3, which is half of 6 stitches, of course. That's what the count has been on these petals. You're going to take your hook out, because now you need to connect these 3 stitches to this loop to create the flower pattern. So you're going to come back here, and you're going to put your hook through the top of that loop. Then you're going to come through here. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to take that loop and you're going to slip it right through the top of that loop from before it. So it should look like that. And then you're going to do 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, the other half of the petal for the next part, and you're going to slip stitch back into the top of this petal right here that we're working on. Okay, now we're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you're slip stitching into that same space. So that's the top of the second flower we're working on for that row. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals, so you need 1 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Back into that same space and slip stitch. Okay, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So your count is good. Now you're going to repeat to the next petal, which is right here. And you're going to chain 4 in that chain 4 space. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so now we have 2 more flowers created. Okay, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of that next petal, and the same thing as before, we're going to chain 3. Now you're going to take your needle off the hook or off the stitch, and you're going to grab the loop, pull it through the previous petal to connect it. I said crochet needle, I meant crochet hook. I think you guys are following along though. I'm trying to just go slow and make sure that you guys understand how to create this. So next we're going to chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch again into the top of that petal. We're almost halfway around this row. Okay, and then we're going to chain 6 again. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So now that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. You need to have 6 total. So you're going to do 1 more. So repeat 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, you're going to slip stitch into the top of that petal. Okay. And now you're going to make your way to the next petal. So you're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to slip stitch into the top of that next petal. So you see how that's turning out? It's looking like it's almost ready to get stitched into the hoop. All right, so chain 3, 1, 2, 3, take your hook out, go into the previous petal at the top center, and you're going to grab the loop again and pull it through. And then you're going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to slip stitch into that space again, okay, of the top of that petal. And then you're going to chain 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, because you're creating the top center loop, which are these loops right here. So those are always going to be 6 stitch counts. Okay, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need one more petal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Into that loop again. Okay, now you have your 6 petals. And then you're going to chain 4 until you get to the next petal. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to go into the top of that next loop and slip stitch. And then you're going to chain 3, take out your hook, put the hook in the previous petal, and then connect this part of the loop to the back side of this one. We're almost there. Chain 3 again, into the top of that center loop again, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Into the top of that loop, slip stitch. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Into the top of that loop again. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 6 petals again. And now you're going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then you have your last petal. So you're going to go into the top of that. Sometimes it's hard to see where that stitch is, but just take your time. And then you're going to slip stitch into that loop, like so. And then you're going to chain 3, take the hook out, go into the back loop from before, and then connect this side of the new loop. Chain 3 one more time, connect it again into the center of that top loop, and slip stitch. Chain 6, into the top of that loop again. Okay. Okay, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have one more petal on this cluster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then into the top of this loop again. Slip stitch. Okay. Takes a bit of patience, guys, to crochet on such a tiny scale, but the results are worth it. So you just have to take your time with it. And then you're going to chain 4 in that last chain 4 cluster, which is right there. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and now you want to just slip stitch into the center of the first petal. Make sure it's in the right spot. That's right. That's where I need to be. Okay, so now you need to connect these two petals. Okay. So you want to slip stitch to the beginning, or actually the top of this loop that you just slip stitched. So you're going to do 2 slip stitches. Now you're at the top of that loop, and you're going to go into the previous loop, and then you're going to stitch it to that, like that. Okay, so you can always go back and double check your count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the count's right. So always just double check your count on this, because you know, it is a more advanced stitch, and I'm doing it on such a teeny tiny scale, which makes it a little bit more daunting, I suppose you could say. But once you get really good at the flower of life stitch, then this isn't as hard. Okay, so there's that. So now we're ready to stitch this flower of life into the hoop. Okay, so I place my motif into the hoop so that the yarn is underneath, the thread is underneath the hoop, and the loop is over. So I'm basically going to stitch it right into the hoop, okay? Just like that. And I'm going to do 5 stitches in between the parts of the flower to get it to stretch and fit on the hoop like that, okay? So let's do that next. So you are going to start single crocheting 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Sometimes it's hard to stitch around this tiny hoop. So I was at 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So now you're going to stitch into this loop right here, bring up a loop, single crochet. Okay, there you got the first loop secured in there. So you're going to do another 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now you're going to go in those 2 connected petals, and you're going to bring up a loop, and you're going to single crochet that in there. Okay, and you just repeat this all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then next loop, single crochet. So you can see how it's already starting to happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then into the connected petals, pull up a stitch and single crochet. So all your way around you're going to have these middle loops, and then you're going to have the connected loops. So 5 stitches in between each portion of this flower of life motif will get you the completed piece that you're ready to assemble as an earring. And then you pull the center and the back to make it tighter if you haven't already. Okay, sometimes I do it later as I'm finishing it rather than earlier on. So 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets and into the next loop. Okay, and then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the connected petals. Okay, you can kind of stretch it a bit as you work. So we're about halfway there now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into that petal, bring up a loop, single crochet. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the connected petals, bring up a loop, single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into the next loop, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the connected 2 petals, bring up a loop, single crochet. We're almost done. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And into that last loop, single crochet, and the last 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you're going to slip stitch. If you can, careful not to poke yourself, it's hard to get into that first stitch sometimes, but once you get there, you slip stitch and you've got that part done. And then you're gonna take your scissors and just trim the end there, pull the string out, and now you have some ends to weave in. So, you know, however you prefer, you can go into the back side of the stitches and weave them in with the hook. You can use a little, once you get it through there, you can secure it with a single crochet or 2 stitches and just kind of tug it, and that should hold it in place. You can use a little fabric glue. You can split the ends. That's another way to secure it in place, and it's a little tedious to do that, but you just twist the thread and separate it. Sometimes it's hard to do it with this really thin stuff. It's pretty thin. So yeah, if you want to just secure it on the back side with a needle or with your hook, just take your hook and pull up or you can go through a few stitches on the back side. It's a little bit tricky with this really thin yarn, but you'll find what method you prefer works best for you. So yeah, once you get that figured out, you're gonna cut your yarn, and then, you know, now you have one earring that you're ready to embellish. So if you want, you could do both earrings and then embellish, or if you want to take a break from crocheting, because it's a little bit involved to to do this, I can show you how to embellish it. So let's start with some fun feathers. I use jump rings and I place them equidistant apart. So we have a few jump rings here and a few feathers. So let's go ahead and do that. You're going to want to open your jump rings so that you can secure them into the motif. So I take my needle nose and my flat nose pliers and I open them. These are a little tougher than some of the other ones I've purchased, but these are silver plated. You just open it a little bit. It doesn't have to be too much because then it's hard to close it if you open it too wide. So just a little bit there. Okay, we're gonna open this one. Alright. Just like that. Okay, so now you want to find a spot on here and just kind of gently poke a hole in the area where you're going to put that jump ring, because that's where the first feather is going to go. Just like that. Sometimes it's hard to get it in there because the stitches are tight, so I use the hook to kind of make the space a little bit bigger. Once you get your feather on there, you're going to just take your tools again and gently close it to secure it in place, like so. And the other two are going to be placed there. We're going to skip 2 sections and then place them higher up. So we're going to skip this area and we're going to place the next jump ring right here. And then once you get that in there, take your tiny feather or whatever charms you have. You can use crystals, you can leave it plain too if you don't want to add charms, that's fine. It's all kinds of ways you can make these personalized with or without charms. They're really cute with real feathers too. So there's the second feather. Okay, and now we have one more feather, so we're going to skip this part and we're going to make that hole just a little bit bigger. Careful not to push too hard, you don't want to break the string. It has happened to me before, so you just got to take your time with it. You can also take your pliers if you are fumbling with your fingers. That helps to get better control of placing it in there sometimes. Let's see, where was I? Right here. So, okay. And then same thing. You're going to secure this in place and just close the ring like so. So now you have your fun charms. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, so now I can show you how to do the bead connector. Oops, this is a straight pin. We're gonna use a wooden bead this time around. I have a quartz crystal on these, which I love. So to do the bead connector, you're gonna take your straight pin and you're gonna take your round nose pliers and you're just gonna wrap the wire around to create a loop like that. And you can kind of, you know, you just want to make sure it's closed. And then you take your cutters and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now you're going to turn because you want the loop to be on the opposite side, not the same side. So it's going to be like an S curve when you put this together, just like that. So now you have your bead connector. Now we're going to open up one more jump ring because we need a jump ring to connect the French hook to the bead. And we're almost done, guys. This is this is the fun part, but then once you make one earring, you realize, oh my gosh, I gotta make another one. It's just like making gloves, crochet gloves. You make one and then you're like, oh, I gotta make another one. Okay, it's a labor of love, isn't it? But it's definitely rewarding, and I enjoy it, and I'm happy to share this with you. So if you decide to make a pair and you want to share it on Instagram and tag me in your makes, feel free to do so. So now we have a French hook, and you just want to open it slightly because you're going to connect it to this bead like so. You want to secure the hook so that it doesn't fall out. And just take your flat nose pliers and secure it in place. Now you're at the top. You want to, from the big feather at the bottom, you go straight up the line, and that's where your connector is going to go. So just make that hole a little bit bigger. Attach your jump ring. Sometimes I can't see so well, even in natural daylight. So I'm going to use my pliers to connect this jump ring, and then you're ready to connect your bead with your hook. You want to make sure the hook is facing this way because you want the front side of the work to be showing when you're wearing them. Okay, so now we're ready to connect this last hoop like that. Voila! So now we have a beautiful flower of life earring. Yay! I hope you love this video. If you like this tutorial and you want to see more, and you want to see me share more of some fun things that I create, feel free to comment, leave me feedback, and head over to my Instagram gallery if you'd like to see more of my work there. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Thank you for tuning in. You can hit the bell if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And with that, I thank you for watching my fun crochet earring tutorial. Also, I have another earring tutorial I made yesterday on how to make my Dreamweaver earrings, which is this style here. So if you'd like to have a tutorial on this pattern, that is also there for you. Have a great evening and happy crafting.